3D animations, designing a website, coding, tennis, but what's next?
Oh no!
How about stretching? Yoga started about a year ago for me. After having a couple taster sessions at my friend's place, I thought it would be a great activity to have regularly with my family and Nicole, which eventually turned into a consistent weekly routine, working on what I think is Hatha yoga. So a year has gone by and I've definitely become more flexible. I know yoga is more than just being flexible, but that is the main driving force for me to be willing to endure 2 hours of it every Saturday. But considering it's been a year, the progress hasn't been all that impressive. I needed more motivation to push myself harder.
Shang-Chi.
A great movie, full stop. Enough said. The reason why I brought this up is because in an interview I saw Nicole watching where Simu Liu talked about how important flexibility was as a fundamental trait to have.
And the stretching, that was by far the most painful.
Just stretching?
Oh my God, yeah, that's how, I learned very quickly, that's how you tell a real martial artist from a fake one, is by the stretching, by how flexible they are. Because if you don't, you can be the strongest guy in the world, but if you don't stretch and you don't have that flexibility, your kick will never going to be able to get that leg up there, you gotta go,
Yeah.
And this also relates to reason number 2. So I play hockey at the Hong Kong Football Club with an older team that has a median age of around 50, which, long story short, means I have to do all the running. The thing I've noticed, having been there for a year, is that all my teammates were insanely fit at their prime, where they were able to maintain multiple sporting commitments regularly and playing at much higher levels than I do now. But what I see now amongst my teammates are some that have stiff backs that only allow them to play sports at night because they have to warm up during the day, and others that have all kinds of muscle sprains all the time that require many physiotherapy sessions that I just keep seeing. The key observation here is that these aren't traumatic injuries like fractures or dislocations. They are very much associated with muscle overuse. But that's just my own opinion. So because I care about longevity and health, I should probably start doing some stretching, take care of those muscles. So for the past few weeks, other than last week when I was a bit sick, I've been trying to get some quick stretches in the morning to build a healthy habit. Let me explain to you how I foresee this process working out long term. First, let's get a graph. On the x-axis is time, with time 0 representing the beginning of this process, and on the y-axis is level of attainment, a fancy way of saying how loose I get. You could also call it motivation, the feel-good factor, drive, because all these things in some way correlate to how well you're doing. This learning curve usually starts off being quite steep. It's the part where you first pick up all the basics and tips and tricks, where you go from knowing nothing to becoming more knowledgeable than the average Joe. Throughout this phase, your motivation and drive is off the roof, and you feel extremely confident you're going to be able to keep it up and make insane progress. Eventually though, we start to reach the first plateau. Other things start getting in the way, the rate of improvement begins to slow, and the whole excitement starts to die down in one way or the other.
So this goes back. I believe that institutional interest.
This is where most people decide, maybe this isn't for me. I've got other things going on. Why don't I just take it easy? But for those that do decide to stick to it, they will go through what feels like endless cycles of advancements and progressions where it feels like no real progression is being made. Though in the bigger scheme of things, the overall trend is still moving upwards, just not enough to be noticeable throughout the smaller cycles. In time, that person will gradually realize that they have made progress and have attained significant mastery and activity in order to sustain themselves with enough motivation to keep it going for long term, and they live happily ever after. So at the moment, I see myself still riding the first part of that curve, reaping in all the benefits and satisfaction of the early stages of building a new habit. How will it actually go? We'll have to see. Thanks for watching.